What's up YouTube? This is the next instalment of our Yu-Gi-Oh! For Beginners kind of breakdown. And this is part 3 of the monster area. And in this episode we're going to touch on ritual monsters, but mainly we're going to be looking at Pendulum monsters, which is the brand new format that's been out for about a year now, and it's changed the game. So we'll quickly touch on ritual monsters. Ritual monsters are effect monsters, basically.
Well, they can also be have no effects, but their main distinguishment is their blue card color.
Yeah. So, with these cards, in order for them to be active on the field, they need to have a spell card activated that specifically goes along with that card. So, for example, we've got Relinquish here. Now, in order to get Relinquish onto the field, you have to activate this spell card behind it. This spell card, you must also offer monsters with total level stars equaling 1 or more. So whatever its level is, you need to match that with monsters in your hand in order to get this card on the field.
Or on the field.
Yeah, or on the field. So your monsters on the field or in your hand, you need to tribute them, so to speak, in order to get out stronger, more unique cards, basically.
More blood for the blood god.
More sacrificials.
Yeah.
So we've quickly touched on ritual monsters there. If there's any questions on those, let us know in the description below, in the comments below. But they're not that big of a player as of yet in today's Yu-Gi-Oh! However, this is where the big players come. Pendulum monsters. Pendulum monsters are basically effect monsters or normal monsters combined with a spell. So as you can see with the tinge in colour. You'll also notice pendulum monsters have this little effect here in this rectangle there, and then their normal effect, attack and defense, as previously stated. So, pendulum monsters. We'll stick with these guys because these guys are in the starter deck and they're quite straightforward. Now, pendulum monsters, ignoring the bottom, the little rectangle in the corner, they are treated as normal monsters in the hand. So quite straightforward. This guy would require 1 tribute, this guy wouldn't. However, so pendulum, as you can see here, you have these numbers and these little scales, these little triangles, and they go in the pendulum zones here and here. You need to have different scales. So as you can see, with this one it has 1, and in this one it has an 8. So you'd place those in the pendulum scales thusly.
When they are placed in the pendulum zones, they are treated as spell cards rather than monsters.
Yeah. So, with these 2 pendulum cards in their place, and as you can see, this one has a scale of 8 and a scale of 1. You can special summon once per turn as many monsters with the level, find you the right cards, so with the levels between 1 and 8. So, anyone that has a level of 2 all the way up to 7. And you can pendulum summon as many monsters as you have in your hand that you can, and including your extra deck. So we'll just say this now, when pendulum monsters are destroyed, whether they be on the field or in the pendulum zone, on the field they go to your extra deck and they can be pendulum summoned out the next turn. Pendulum monsters only go to the graveyard when it is said distinctly by a card effect, or if it is sent from your hand or deck to the graveyard.
Or when its summon is negated.
Yeah.
But that's more advanced later.
That we'll get on when we hit the traps later on.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry guys. So, for example, I have a scale 8 and a scale 1. I'm going to pendulum summon 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do that because all of their levels are within the boundaries of 2 to 7. Okay? What I can't do is special summon a monster that's a level 8 or a level 1, because it needs to be in between. So the way it's shown, such as Effect Failure, I can't special summon that out because it's a level 1. So the way it is shown is that in between these scales, figuratively boundaries there, and in between is the rest of the numbers. So you would see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for example. What you don't want to be doing is, for example, putting a level 3 in there, because then you can only special summon monsters that are level 2. Also, what you don't want to be doing is putting 2 monsters with the same scale. So both of these monsters have 3. You can't pendulum summon, because there is no in between. So quite simply, you either want an 8 and a 3, or a 1 and an 8. Obviously, all pendulum monsters have different scales, so you can get mixtures or decks that rely on a 3 scale and a 5 scale.
Once you activated a pendulum monster, you cannot replace it by placing another pendulum monster on top. So once activated, the only way to get rid of them would be to get them destroyed.
Yep. Which then brings us to the pendulum effect. So, like a normal monster, below at the bottom is the normal monster effect that activates on the field. In this area up here is the pendulum effect. This effect only applies when it is in the pendulum zones. Those effects, so for example on this one, once while this card is in your pendulum zone, you can target one card in the pendulum zone, destroy it. So that's its pendulum effect. That effect doesn't go off on the field, and its monster effect doesn't go off in the pendulum zone unless it specifically says destroyed. But that's another effect that we'll get down to later. You don't need to touch too much on that. So again, just to reiterate, your pendulum zones can be any type of monster as long as they're a pendulum card, so you don't need to have 2 darks or 2 lights or anything like that. As long as their scales are different, you can put them into the pendulum zone. And like Donald said earlier, they are treated as spells in the pendulum zone, not monsters. So they're considered as monsters, spells. Quite simple. So that's everything on pendulums, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, we're all happy with pendulums. So that's pendulums that we did, and we also did.
Except for the fact that when they're destroyed as monsters, they
Yeah.
go to him.
So again, like Sean just pointed out, when these cards are destroyed in your pendulum zone or as monsters, they go to your extra deck.
Face up.
Face up, and they can be pendulumed out the next turn. So just quickly while Sean mentioned it, if I have these 2 in the pendulum zones, 1 and an 8, I pendulum summon out these 2 guys. My opponent destroys these guys. They don't go to the graveyard. They go here to your extra deck. And as long as I still have my scales intact, the next turn I can pendulum them both out again. But you don't have to pendulum from either your extra deck or your hand. You can, for example, if I had these guys in my hand, I can pendulum summon these guys from the extra deck and then pendulum summon these guys from my hand. That's absolutely fine. But you can only pendulum summon once per turn. So, I believe that is everything on pendulum summons. Again, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below and we'll be happy to answer them. And if there's anything else you want to know, by all means let us know in the comments below. We'll do all we can to help you out with that. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out the next video, which I believe we're going to be doing is spells. So we're now finished with our monsters. We'll do a quick roundup actually before we go. So basically what we've talked about is we've talked about the different types of monsters. So we've talked about normal vanilla monsters, we've talked about effect monsters, ritual monsters, and most importantly, pendulum monsters. These are all main deck cards. So you won't see them anywhere else. These are what you want in your main deck. We've also talked about levels, attributes, so on and so forth. So if you've missed any of that, check out the link in the description below to the previous videos. And without further ado, we're going to be moving on to the spells in our next part of this Yu-Gi-Oh breakdown series. So again, thanks for watching, and Donald's famous catchphrase,
Happy dawning!